But you can't account for intensity either. I was on the mall for the last couple of days covering this for Fox and Friends. I was out there with the folks that came to see the inauguration. We might even have some tape of it. I mean, these folks were fired up. They felt like their country is back. And you talk about Washington, D.C., I don't think there's 4% of Washington, D.C. voted for Donald Trump. You know who was on that inaugural mall? That was America. That was Nebraska and Kansas and across the country, driving hundreds, if not thousands of miles to be there. You contrast that with the Women's March, which we're going to talk a little bit about. And those are folks that are coming from liberal enclaves, easily descending on Washington,
When I was watching, you were great, by the way, out there, and I was watching it here. I was sitting on the couch in case anything dropped out, so I watched that very closely. And you're right, it did make you feel so patriotic in that moment, and all those people that came out. But it's interesting, if the mainstream media weren't talking about the size or all that, they would find something else to talk about. I mean, I was watching this coverage, and I was kind of bouncing back through the channels, and there was one that was even, I won't mention another channel, was complaining about his hiring his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to work with him, and comparing that to Mussolini. And this was right before the speech happened. I'm thinking, where are we right now?
Can we drop
is
the dictator
this really what people want to talk
Mussolini,
about?
Hitler talk?
No, if you read Reddit, if you see the other left-wing media last night, they were comparing Sean Spicer's press conference to that of a press conference out of North Korea. They get ready for the next 4 years. It's going to look like North Korea.
Send us your thoughts. What do you think? What was your take on how the mainstream media covered this and Sean Spicer's response?
Yeah, we want to hear what you have to
Meanwhile,
say.
there was big protests yesterday all over the country. Los Angeles, big liberal cities, New York City, Washington, D.C. as well. Hundreds of thousands of people coming out, the Women's March. And Madonna was there. You had some celebrities that showed up. Madonna...
I was waiting to hear what Madonna had to say.
Yeah, we were all
a lot of
waiting.
people were.
So here she is. Take a listen to what she had to say yesterday.
No. It took this horrific moment of darkness to wake us the up. I am a nasty woman. I feel Hitler in these streets. A mustache traded for a toupee.
The president is not America. We are America, and we are here to stay.
President Trump, I did not vote for you. I want to be able to support you. But first, I ask that you support me.
I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Is that one of the worst things you've ever heard?
No, it's terrible.
I'm actually speechless.
She's trying to justify it. I don't even know how you can really justify that. I mean, she tried to put it in broader context later. After that, I don't know what the broader context would be. I thought a lot about blowing up the White House.
You know what? So here's what I would say about these protests, because as you said, there are hundreds of thousands, not only here in the U.S., but in Berlin and in Paris and other places, all around the world. Having spent time in Beijing, I think we should all be thankful that we are able to have peaceful protests, because that's what this country's all about. And you had women that were passionate about this. But watching it play out yesterday, it was really hard to understand exactly what they were protesting.
Yes.
There wasn't sort of an organized theme, and that's usually what you are trying to accomplish when you're protesting.
Right, you heard different things from different protesters, that they were protesting, not my president, and others saying, I support him, but we want women's issues to be on the forefront. And so, yes, I support him, but this. And then others saying, he's not my president at all.
Well, that's a lot of them were saying that. This was a shadow Hillary Clinton, we wish she was our president rally. I mean, that's effectively what the entire tone was from the whole thing. And these are all liberal enclaves. I mean, these are the folks that came out on the coasts. They came out again for Hillary Clinton and to protest Donald Trump. But once again, Donald Trump is president.
And you know what?
And he's going to have an opportunity to show how he wants to fix this country.
Let's have a debate on our Facebook page this morning. I know it's going to get heated, and let's have some fun with it. FF Weekend is our Facebook page. Yes, it was entertaining.
Did you win that debate?
I don't know that you can win that debate.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't waded into that debate, but I'd love to hear from our viewers this morning.
Yeah, we do want to hear from all of you. We do have some other headlines to get to, starting with this one. A state of emergency is declared after a deadly tornado tears through southern Mississippi, killing 4 people at William Carey University in Hattiesburg. Nearly every building was damaged. Those storms ripping through states from Texas to Alabama. Just take a look at this, the aftermath at a car dealership in Mobile, Alabama. Glass smashed and cars piled right on top of each other. Also this, more good news from our former First Family. President George H.W. Bush continuing to improve this morning in a Houston hospital. This as former First Lady Barbara could be released from that same hospital later today. That's some great news. Mrs. Bush has been fighting bronchitis while Mr. Bush has battled pneumonia in the ICU. thoughts with them this morning. And First Lady Melania Trump moved to tears during the National Prayer Service. Watch. So Melania wiping away tears after a powerful performance by Marlana Van Hoos. The 20-year-old singer with a beautiful voice is blind and suffers from cerebral palsy. That is incredible.
Oh, really cool. It was a powerful service. Yeah.
All right, coming up here on the show, it was one of the president's biggest hits on the campaign trail.
Who is going to pay for the wall? Who? You better believe it.
Why we may finally find out if Mexico will pay for the wall.
And with the stroke of a pen, the president eases the burden of Obamacare. Our next guest says this sends a big signal to Congress and the country. Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy joins us live next.
There's been a lot of talk in the media about the responsibility to hold Donald Trump accountable. And I'm here to tell you that it goes two ways. We're going to hold the press accountable as well. The American people deserve better, and as long as he serves as the messenger for this incredible movement, he will take his message directly to the American people, where his focus will always be.
That was Press Secretary Sean Spicer yesterday, a real surreal message and strong message he was sending to the media in his first White House press briefing. No questions, he just addressed them directly. Now the mainstream media is up in arms, calling Spicer's words chilling. But does Spicer have a point?
Joining us now to weigh in, Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy. Good morning, Congressman. How you doing? We got you? Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
yeah.
So what do you make of this? What do you make of how Sean Spicer came out and made the case that if you're going to hold us accountable, we're going to hold you accountable?
Listen, I think this is the message of Donald Trump over the course of his campaign. When the media is dishonest or not truthful about Donald Trump or the things that he's doing and saying, he pushes back. And now he has a whole team around him, including Sean Spicer, that'll do that. Why is the media talking about, well, Barack Obama had a huge crowd and Donald Trump's wasn't as big? They want to sit and needle Donald Trump in his inauguration, I think trying to get a stir out of him, when really we should be talking about the big ideas that are going to fix America.
Right.
How are we going to get health care right, or the border, or immigration?
Well, you bring up a great point, though. I'm just curious, why waste your first press conference doing something like that? I mean, who cares about the size of the audience? Yes, the crowd was not as large. Who cares? Why don't you talk more about, Obamacare? Use that opportunity to come out in your very first day as part of your administration and talk about easing the burden of Obamacare.
Well, I think you make a good point. When you make this the first topic of your first day in office, you give energy to the story, and they probably should have gone in a different direction. And I think they'll learn. This is a new team, so they'll learn from their past experiences and hopefully stay on target and on message to drive the story of the day. But I think you're right. I mean, you look at Obamacare and Donald Trump's promises. He came out with an executive order to start rolling Obamacare back, to give one little small step in the long fight we're going to have to replace the Affordable Care Act, which is not affordable for the American people, and get it to work for all Americans who've lost their coverage, can't afford to pay for their premium increases, and when they can't afford to pay for it, they have a skyrocketing deductibles that make it unaffordable for
Congressman,
families.
you mentioned this executive order on Obamacare, one of the first things that he did. What did it ease? What was the step that it took?
So what he did is he basically said, listen, we're going to halt the expansion of Obamacare, number one, which is key. But the second point is he's going to give more flexibility to the states. And I think what this is a foreshadowing for states to take more control of health care, specifically in regard to Medicaid. Governors know their people and their states and their problems far more than bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And I think that flexibility will go a long way to letting governors run programs in a way that help the most people possible. Not only that, we're going to, again, delay implementation, more flexibility. And this was not the clearest executive order, but to be clear, this is, again, the first step in the repeal and replace effort that we're going to have in Congress.
Yeah, it is an octopus, and Republicans want to wait before they do any sort of replacement plan to meet with the president and understand his plan. Congressman, great to see you this morning. It's going to be a busy week in Washington. Thanks.
Thanks,
hey, guys. Have a good one.
All right. President Trump getting a standing ovation from the CIA. So was the feud between him and the intel agencies, or was it just a media talking point? We're live at the White House to cover that.
And celebrities go unhinged at the women's marches around the country, but will they actually help President Trump? We're going to debate that next.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
James Mattis arriving for his first day of work at the Pentagon, greeted by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Inside, Mattis holding what the Defense Department called a top 4 meeting. He's not yet announced any policy changes. And the president's son-in-law officially headed to the White House. Jared Kushner cleared by the Justice Department of any potential anti-nepotism violations to become a senior advisor to the president. Abby?
Thanks, Clayton. It's all official.
An awful lot about blowing up the White House.
The platform of hate and division assumed power yesterday. But the president is not America.
Trump takes power. I don't think so.
Well, celebrities going more than a little too far in their speeches yesterday, joining the hundreds of thousands of people filling the streets in cities across the world for women's marches in protest of the new president. But isn't America the best place for women's rights? Here to debate, Amy Holmes with Rasmussen Reports and Caprica Faro, the former Ohio State Senator, a Senator Democrat Minority Leader. Good morning, ladies. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Good morning.
So first, Amy, just your reaction from what Madonna said yesterday, that she has thought about blowing up the White House. I mean, you listen to that and you think, is that even legal? You can't go into a movie theater and shout fire. How can she say that?
You certainly can't say those things at, say, Reagan National Airport that's just a few miles away. And let's remember, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 15 years, and I was there on 9/11. You don't make those types of remarks at a city that suffered a terrorist attack. And Madonna doesn't know who in her audience may be listening and taking a cue and maybe even trying to impress her by taking her up on her word. Listen, Madonna also, it appeared, because she was reading from a script, that those were scripted remarks. It was not offhand. She said she thought about it a lot. There's been some suggestion that maybe even the Secret Service should investigate. I think that they should, just so that Madonna understands that she has a responsibility, and what she did yesterday was deeply irresponsible.
I'm all for peaceful protests, Capri. Having spent a lot of time living in Beijing, you have to admit, we do live in the best place to be a woman. The fact that they can peacefully protest like that and say what they want to say, can't you say that this is the best place to be a woman?
Well, certainly, when you compare our nation to many others, particularly in the developing world, the United States is a leader when it comes to women's rights. Now, I want to say a few words about the event yesterday. I did go down there and in the midst of the crowds and the chaos in Washington, D.C., but I have a message for my fellow Democrats. We're not doing ourselves any favors by screaming obscenities and having lewd remarks on signs. This is not the way to change policy. A one-day event, which, it's wonderful that we got 500,000 people out in the city of Washington and hundreds of thousands across the globe, as you mentioned, Abby, at the beginning of the segment. But, what's happening right now is, instead of talking about things like the elimination of 25 grant programs by the Justice Department for the Violence Against Women Act, we're talking about Madonna basically screaming obscenities and talking about blowing up the White House. What we need to do is be more solution-oriented. We need solutions, not slogans. We need to be productive and not chaotic. And so, to me, I would implore my fellow Democrats and other progressives that are concerned about these issues, let's quit it. Let's think about channeling this energy into things like mass-scale training for advocacy.
No, I think that's spot on. And to that point, Amy, it was sort of conditional love, because it wasn't for all women to come out, right? If you were pro-life, you weren't allowed to even partner with these women organizations.
That's exactly.
Does this end up ultimately helping Trump in the end?
That's exactly right, Abby. And this was billed as a women's march. I think it would have been more appropriate to call it a liberal women's march. And some women, as you say, were not welcome. And a New Wave feminist organization that's pro-life, they were disinvited because the organizers of this march said, we don't want those types of women, that abortion trumped gender in this case. I would also point out that I wanted to hear a little bit more humility, in the sense that, look, Donald Trump won 41% of the women's vote. He won 27.5 million women voting for Donald Trump. Women are not a monolith. There are many different issues that appeal to many different women. As we know, Donald Trump, he won the white female vote. He won the white non-college educated female vote by 62%. I would have liked to have seen some of those women on stage acknowledge those.
And we didn't even get to
well.
Kellyanne Conway, who you could argue if she were on the other side of things, she'd be on the cover of every magazine today for what she accomplished as a woman. But ladies, good to have you here this morning.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you very much.
All right, coming up, it was one of the president's biggest hits on the campaign trail.
Who is going to pay for the wall? Who? You better believe it.
Why we may finally find out if Mexico will pay for that wall. Plus, Eric Trump gives his first interview since his father was sworn in.
All there is a sea of people. That's a sight that I will never forget as long as I live. It was truly an unbelievable moment.
The message that he has for his father as he sets off in his first week in office.
What those windows are, right? What rooms they are.
No, those are his aides. Or maybe it's the president.
Maybe it's the residence. I don't know.
Oh, I think I see Fox and Friends through the window.
Right.
Oh, I think they're watching us this morning.
On his first day in the Oval Office, President Trump throwing 1,000% of his support behind the intelligence community while once again slamming what he says is the dishonest media.
Our own Kristen Fisher is at the White House where the Trump administration prepares for day 2. Good morning, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Hey guys, good morning. So today, President Trump has two things on his schedule. During the day, he's going to be overseeing the swearing in of assistants, and then tonight, he's holding a reception for law enforcement and first responders. Now, yesterday was Mr. Trump's first full day in office, and he spent it visiting the CIA's headquarters, where he received a standing ovation despite his repeated criticism of the intelligence community. Remember, a few weeks ago, he equated them to Nazi Germany, but yesterday, the president blamed his perceived feud with the CIA on the media.
I am with you 1,000%. And the reason you're my first stop is that, as you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth.
Now, President Trump made those remarks while standing in front of the CIA's wall of stars. Each star represents an employee who died in the line of service. And using that as a backdrop didn't sit well with the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. His former aide released a statement saying, quote, Brennan is deeply saddened and angered at Trump's despicable display of self-aggrandizement in front of the CIA's memorial wall of agency heroes. Brennan says that Trump should be ashamed of himself. Now, so far, President Trump has not responded, but that, of course, could change at any moment with a single tweet. And guys, y'all were talking about the lights that are on in the White House. I've been out here every morning by 5 a.m. for the last 2 mornings. And both times when I arrived here at 5 a.m., the lights in the residence were on, which is a noticeable departure from when President Obama was in the residence.
Wow, look at that. Kristen, they were waiting for you to come on the air.
Well, we
details.
do know that President Trump, we know that he doesn't sleep much.
He does not. He's up early. He's an early riser.
Wow, that was a great little anecdote there.
Absolutely it was. You know, and speaking of, they mentioned what the former CIA director said. He did mention the significance of where he was standing and looked out at those CIA officers, said, I'm behind you. You're going to have so much backing. And he talked about being on the same wavelength, which I think is so much of what it's all about. The reception he's doing tonight with law enforcement. I mean, what a departure from the previous administration, and then same wavelength. I think these CIA agents feel like they're going to have the tools they need.
They feel like he gets them, like he's connected them in some way. So last night, Eric Trump spoke on Justice with Judge Jeanine, and really a surreal moment because you watch this all play out on Friday, and so much of it is a family affair, and they're all experiencing this together. If you think about the campaign trail, I mean, you could argue he may not have won without his family there behind him speaking out on his behalf. It was really a special moment for the whole family, and here's what he said last night.
I saw a video of myself, and I was mouthing, this is unbelievable. And you walk down the hallway, out of the Capitol, down the stairs, and you pass the honor guard. And these are men and women in uniform, and they're at attention. And you're walking through almost a sea of them lined up on the way down those stairs. It was so powerful. And then you come out this door, and it's just massive. I mean, it's massive. You see the Washington Monument, a mile or two down, and all there is a sea of people. And it's a sight, that's a 60-second period of time from this time you start that walk to the time you get to your seat. That's a sight that I will never forget as long as I live. It was truly an unbelievable moment.
So many presidents have come in with a part of the country opposed to the way they are and what they think and what they stand for. What is your dad going to do as he fights to bring America together?
There's no question that this country is divided. And it's no question that this country has, quite frankly, been divided for a very, very long time. And I think you're really seeing it more so than ever right now. People want jobs back. They want security back. People don't want ISIS running around this country. They don't want bombs going off at marathons. They don't want our nightclubs getting shot up. You know, people want great education. They want jobs. They want manufacturing. They want a great quality of life. They want great health care. Right? That's what we all want. He has a better ability to deliver that than I think any president before him. And he's going to do an unbelievable job. You just watch.
It was interesting as you watch that family and they're walking through the parade. It's one of the the largest extended families we've seen come into the White House in decades. And I couldn't help but think as you're watching them come sitting in the seats there, are they taking it in those moments? Are they able to?
It's almost like your wedding day, right? Where you look back and like, I wish I took it all in more, because it just goes by so fast because you're so overwhelmed with what you're experiencing. And for them, I mean, having been through this on, with my dad at a national level, but not as far along as they got. I mean, you work tirelessly for months on end. It is such an emotional journey. Yeah. You also love your dad so much. You love your parents so much. And so it's an emotional roller coaster. So I think you're right. I think you take a step back a few days later and you're trying to remember it all, but you can't because it's so emotionally overwhelming.
It sure sounds like Eric Trump took it in, and realized the gravity of the moment for sure. Amazing.
Unbelievable. All right, we do have some other headlines to get to this morning, starting with President Trump packing his schedule with meetings with foreign leaders. Mr. Trump taking a call from Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto. The two plan to meet later this month to discuss trade, immigration, and border security. But first, the president will welcome British Prime Minister Theresa May to Washington on Friday. And a motorcycle driver lucky to be alive this morning. Take a look at this insane crash, all of it caught on camera, where the rider slamming right into the back of a car on a busy Washington state highway, landing on top of the car. The man holding on for dear life for a quarter of a mile before the driver finally